Okay, we'll give it just a minute here for folks to connect to
Sure.
audio. Okay. All right, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. We are really excited to have Mathematica here today to talk a little bit more about their organization, and I'm sure some different opportunities that might be available to you as students. So with that, I'd love to hand it over to Corinne.
Hello, everyone. Well, thank you so much for having me today. And actually, I am joined by at least one of my coworkers, Preeti Dixit, and I think one of my other ones will be joining too, Meredith Mersitz. So I'm not able to see the full list of attendees, but Preeti is definitely on, and Meredith should be joining as well. But thank you for having us today. I will just start by saying that we have had such wonderful experiences with Hopkins students from Bloomberg. We think it's a great school. The programs tend to really prepare students well for Mathematica, and so it is absolutely just exciting and my pleasure to be here and hopefully talk to some of you about joining Mathematica someday. Okay, so just as a quick introduction, my name is Corinne Petersick. I'm the director of our talent acquisition team at Mathematica. Talent acquisition is just kind of a fancy way to say I lead our recruiting department. And then Preeti, who is one of my colleagues on the call, is a talent acquisition specialist. And then if Meredith has joined, she's also a talent acquisition specialist. So just to go over a quick agenda, I'll talk a little bit about Mathematica and what we do. I'll also try to, just describe a few of the reasons, a few of the big reasons, the main reasons why I think Mathematica is a great place to consider for your future. We'll talk about current job opportunities as well as future job opportunities. And we will leave a good bit of time to talk about questions and answers. Unfortunately, we weren't able to get any actual existing kind of researchers or research analysts on the call today because of schedules, but we do have the three of us, the three recruiters who can answer questions that you might have about applying or about, joining Mathematica. Okay, so these slides, I'll be honest with you, it's hard to put them in order because every little thing is a different in its own way. So you'll probably notice I repeat some of this information a little bit, but that's only because altogether these slides sort of tell like a full story of Mathematica. So one thing to know about us is that we are a long-standing, long-tenured organization. We've been around since the 1960s. A fun or interesting story is actually that we started as a little bit of an offshoot of Princeton University. So a few research sort of faculty members from Princeton actually got together to try to do some research that eventually would go on to impact policy related to labor and employment issues in New Jersey, the state of New Jersey. So we kind of really started out as a very academic adjacent organization, and in some ways that has really carried through with us even to today. But what's great is that we have also expanded beyond and added beyond kind of that purely academic type of research into other areas. So I'll talk about that as we go. Our official sort of tagline as an organization is that we are the insight partner that illuminates the path to progress for public and private sector change makers. Again, that's a really beautiful line, but I think the easiest way to describe us in fewer words is that we're a social and public policy research firm. We have, this is out of date. We actually have about over 1,600 employees these days. And again, as you'll see in future slides, you'll notice these words, rigor and objectivity, evidence. All of those concepts are just really what kind of drive all our researchers to, build often their careers here for many, many years. We do pride ourselves on conducting work that is really high quality, very rigorous, very confidence inspiring and all of that. So that is one reason our experts do join Mathematica. Another thing to note is that we've been employee owned since the 80s. So that might not mean very much to you, but it is really important, I think, especially to people who do end up kind of growing their careers at Mathematica, because what it means is that our organization is staff driven. We make decisions at both a high level and an individual level, um, based on what our employees think is important, what they think we can do really well as a company, the work that we feel will really make a difference in public well-being. And that also goes again to, for individuals and how they shape their own portfolios. So as an individual, analyst or researcher at Mathematica, you do get to make decisions about the projects you would like to join, projects you do not want to join. That's really important as well. Okay, so our mission. I've bolded a couple of words here that are particularly relevant, but basically, we exist to improve public well-being by bringing the highest standards of quality, objectivity, and excellence to bear on the provision of information collection and analysis to our clients. Our goal is, I'm sorry, I think I'm not showing that I'm presenting. So Mathematica is helping create a world where evidence routinely drives public policy and program decisions. You'll notice, I won't read all of this, I promise, but you'll notice that one of the next bold words is collaborate. So collaboration is also a really key value of ours. It's a really key concept of being at Mathematica. We collaborate not only with the people who fund our work, but also with the people we work with. It's a very sort of collegial, collaborative environment. And then again, improving public well-being is really kind of the bread and butter of the essence of what we do. So looking ahead a little bit into the future, in addition to everything that was on the prior slides, we've also really enhanced our message and our vision and our mission on equity and justice. And of course, those concepts have always been, I think, rooted in just the whole idea of public well-being, but we are explicitly focusing on equity and justice as we move forward, going toward 2035 and beyond. So again, I'm going to get to a few of the details of how we actually do our work and how does the work come to us and why is it so impactful? I'll get to all that, but I am for now going to just show you this picture of Paul Decker, who is our president and CEO. I like to talk about Paul because I think he is a really transparent, very engaged leader in the sense where, he gives presentations to all of us really frequently. He meets with new hires really frequently. He has focus groups where he's just the only one in a group of staff, asking questions about what their experiences have been. He's very thoughtful. He's also been here for a very long time. So he actually started at Mathematica as a research economist back when he first graduated with his PhD, and he is now the CEO like 30 years later. So when I say that people build their careers here, I mean it, and he's like a very good example, of course. Okay, so this next slide sort of addresses, tactically, how does this work happen? Like when I say we do social and public policy research, how do we actually do that? Why does it exist? And the answer is that basically we partner very closely with a wide variety of clients and funders. So most of the time it will be federal government clients. So on the health side of things, we are often working with CMS. On human services side of things, human services is an umbrella term here for topics ranging from education to family services to nutrition. Sometimes those projects partner with the Department of Education or the Social Security Administration. So lots of different federal partners. We also do work with states. So in particular, I think we have a lot of education work based in individual states and regions. We also have a growing body of work that partners with state Medicaid agencies and state health groups. And Even beyond sort of the public sector, we often will partner with nonprofits, foundations, philanthropies, academic institutions, and all sorts of other funders that have a vested interest in the way policies and programs are developed. Basically, they will put out questions to a variety of research organizations and they will say, we know that XYZ is a problem, but we don't know why it's a problem and we don't know how big of a problem it is and we don't know how to address it. And so we're not always answering all of those questions, but sometimes there's a little bit of all of those mixed into the question they ask. And we essentially say, okay, I think we're well suited to address this question that you have, or to at least do the research into it. And here's how we would do it. And so, that's where all of this really strong like academic and critical thinking, all of this training really prepares you to kind of think like, what can we show this potential client that other organizations can't, and why is it going to be better, and who do we have working here who can do the absolute best work. So it's a very collaborative process to write a research proposal or a project proposal. And then ideally there's a step missing in here, but ideally we would win that work. So we would be given the work to do. And then from there, our staff raise their hands and say, okay, we've won this work. I would really like to work on it. I'd like to do it. So the work is organized into a series of analyses and deliverables and written portions of the project. We call them tasks, but I think it's probably more accurate to call them phases. So, as a researcher or an analyst or whatever position you might be in, you could work on the analytic phase of a project, but maybe not, the client management phase of the project where you're walking them through how to implement the recommendations. So there are different phases of projects, and you could either be involved in one or multiple. So again, it, so I alluded to this a little bit in talking about who our clients are, but it's good to just know very clearly that there are basically three operational units doing the research work and the program improvement work. And so those areas are health, human services, and international. So health work does tend to focus, a lot of our work, especially now, does actually focus on program improvement with different affordability and financing issues. The delivery of healthcare is a big topic. We do some work, kind of more health services research as well, related to behavioral and mental health, substance use, public health issues. So there is some of that as well, but a lot of our work in health is kind of shifting in some ways into improving programs that impact the way healthcare runs like pretty immediately. In our human services units, I mentioned this earlier, early childhood, education, employment, nutrition, family support, all of these topics are kind of under the umbrella of human services. As you might suspect, there is some overlap between health and human services, particularly when it comes to, well, probably all of these topics, but, employment and healthcare sometimes have connections. Early childhood and health have connections. Nutrition and health have connections. So there is some overlap in terms of topics, and it makes an interesting opportunity to kind of work across sectors sometimes. And then we have our international unit. So our international work tends to focus on lower and middle income countries. In a way, our work is really designed to help different regions develop and maintain programs that improve nutrition, education, health, agriculture practices, those sorts of things. So really fascinating work happening internationally as well. And then we have our administration team, which basically supports and partners with our research units to make sure that they can do their jobs as best as possible and as efficiently as possible. So HR, legal, ITS. I mention this because sometimes, people do end up realizing that, yeah, I'm interested in public policy, but I'm also interested in applying that in a very technical way, or in a legal way, or in a recruiting way. So there are some opportunities that might interest you in that unit as well. So again, I've also alluded to our core values. They are listed right here. So it's not a coincidence that collaboration is at the top of this wheel. Collaboration is by far the value that gets talked about the most, that we score the best on in terms of, employee engagement and the way that we adhere to core values. Collaboration is just so important to us. Of course, so are all the other ones, but I think every single one of the other values is really bolstered by collaboration and vice versa. So collaboration is certainly the one that I tend to call out the most because it just plays into everything we do. Um, so to recap, I mean, if you're considering joining Mathematica, but you're also looking into other environments, I would say that, being as objective as possible. Of course, we think we're great, but I think our real strengths are that we are established. So we've been around for 60 years or so, and we've grown so much and really maintained a strong reputation. We are, committed and also recommitted to equity and public well-being. Um, you do have a real opportunity to make a difference. So this work is applied. It's either applied to, policies that will be referenced and utilized in the future, or sometimes the work being done is immediately applied to different programs that are carrying out such important work. And then you'll be working with experienced staff, as well as innovative and new staff too. So kind of have a nice balance there. They are multidisciplinary teams. You work alongside people who have different strengths, but ultimately have kind of a core interest and set of experience in public policies or programs. And it is an inclusive and supportive culture. Getting down to the nuts and bolts, we do have different office locations. They are listed here, but I will also go on to say that we are super flexible. Anyone can work from home. We have not, we have taken the route of saying, we have our offices, people are welcome to come into them, and people do go into them for sure. But we, also recognize that people, do tend to do very well working from home. There's no problem with that here. And, we can open ourselves up to a wider variety of people if we allow them to work remotely across the United States. So we have a ton of people who work remotely full time. Okay, so I'm realizing the more and more I do this, I probably need to reorder the slides a little bit, but I do want to talk a little bit about some of the high visibility projects that we've worked on. And I fully acknowledge that some of these are a bit out of date, not because, so I've kind of consciously kept them in because I think they're really good examples of how we've been able to do really impactful work and do it quickly and in a really solid way. So even though they do mostly relate to COVID-19, they are, they're just a few examples of how you can make a difference like very quickly and in a really exciting and important way. So the first example is the 19andMe COVID-19 risk calculator tool. So I like this calculator example because not only is it just a really interesting tool, but it also has a really interesting story behind it. So basically, what the tool does is this was developed at the very beginning of COVID. So, spring of 2020, we had a statistician, and she still works here, who was about to get married. And she really didn't know because there was no guidance available. She didn't really know what factors should play into her decision of whether to keep her wedding on or cancel it, if she should have it outside, if she should limit the attendees. None of that was known at that time. And so she developed a risk calculator based on all sorts of different data that could really give people a very again, high confidence sort of understanding of what activities they could do that would be high, moderate, or low risk of COVID-19. So again, I think these tools kind of exist a lot more now, but this is extremely cutting edge at the beginning of our experience with the pandemic, and she's won lots of awards for it. It was just a really important tool. We also developed a tool, again, probably a year or so into the pandemic, right before we were thinking about whether students should go back to school. And uh, we wanted to know, what COVID's impact really was on teacher diversity across the United States. And then that sort of spurred some questions on how to improve diversity, how to incentivize teachers in ways that are actually helpful and impactful. And then this last one, I tried to pick an example from each of our units. This is a sort of a global application where we were one of the first organizations to understand that wastewater testing for opioids and methamphetamine use could be, well, so that, use of opioid and methamphetamines could be identified earlier and trends could be tracked better by testing wastewater. It's a little bit better than other measurements. And so we were one of the first organizations to do that globally. And we actually applied that same concept to COVID-19 testing back in the early days. And it was found to be also useful. So that was a pretty important project of ours as well. So again, just kind of the same concepts. Why would you want to choose Mathematica? We're staff driven. I think that's a big one. We do really high quality work. Our work's important. There are lots of opportunities for professional development. We have really defined, but also we have defined career paths that we really know how to kind of help people along. But that's not to say that, we're not flexible. If you decide like, hey, I'm on this research path, but actually I want to, try out more of like a data science path, or maybe I want to try out an HR path, you can do that. The flexibility is there, but we do have really solid opportunities and paths for professional development. It is a very team-oriented culture, very collaborative. And this last one, work-life balance, so I have to admit, I think what I would probably clarify about this point is that it's really important to Mathematica to have our employees feel like they have, that they're able to focus on life, more than work. So it's really important to us that we get there, where people don't feel overwhelmed, where they don't feel like they have to do a lot of extra work. And I think in a lot of ways we achieve that. I think work-life balance is hard at a lot of organizations right now, and I don't want to sugarcoat the fact that we're not immune to that. But I do think like it is within our core of who we are, wanting to achieve work-life balance. So we're constantly doing things to try to make that better for people. And then this is a big slide, but some information on DEI programs and information. And I can't read through all of this. There's just a lot. It's pretty text heavy, but I would encourage you to visit our the website that's up at the top. It's a really good explanation of kind of our journey as a whole, but also just kind of not just things we've done and achievements or whatever, but also like how we're sort of deconstructing the way that we have always done things and rebuilding them with equity in mind. And it's an interesting site. So I think we have a lot of things I could talk about in terms of just, we have improved the diversity of our staff a lot over the past few years. And there are lots of talent mobility opportunities for all staff. And, there are things I could say about it, but I think this website is really a good summary. Okay, so probably what you've been waiting for, we are actively hiring. So so I'm going to start by talking about health opportunities. So most of our opportunities right now are within the subtopic of Medicaid. So we have a ton of work that's funded by both federal and state for federal and state Medicaid program improvement work. So, if you do a quick search of our career site and use the keyword of Medicaid, you'll see a bunch. So those are a lot of what we're hiring that I think would probably be most relevant right now for many of you. I would try to identify positions that end with the word analyst. So generally the logic is that associates are typically earlier career folks who are kind of, maybe just graduating from their bachelor's programs or doing some sort of career change. Analyst roles are really good for people who are graduating from their master's programs or, have a good amount of experience in these topic areas. Researcher roles are generally going to be for people with quite a bit of experience or those who are completing their PhDs. So I think analyst positions or maybe researcher positions are probably going to be in most of your wheelhouses. And then I'm actually going to ask Preeti to go over some of the other positions that we're going to expect to see later this year and some of our other units. So Preeti, could you jump in and just talk a bit about opportunities outside of health that currently exist and then ones that will be upcoming?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Corinne. You can hear me well, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm hoping that sometime in October, we should see some postings for research associates and research analysts for our human services and international research divisions. As Corinne said, just use those keywords of analysts and associates when you're ready to explore positions. And if you do not see any positions that are of interest to you, I would highly recommend setting up job alerts for yourself. And that way, whenever a position that is of interest to you gets posted, you will get a notification and you can come back to our careers page and look for the qualifications. But we do anticipate to start hiring sometime in October, November, and this is going to be for the spring and summer hiring for next year. But we do anticipate, to open positions for human services international sometime next month.
Thank you. Yeah. And then this last slide, I'll just keep it up. So this is what I will end on. There are a few of us who work on the types of positions that you would probably be interested in. So you'll see my name and then Preeti's. And then we have Cheyenne Grigoletti and Meredith Mersitz. They are two other of our talent acquisition specialists who tend to work on roles that may be of interest. So, any of us are open to being contacted. Feel free to, keep these emails in mind. We have our careers page. I've also highlighted our podcast, which I think is a really interesting, the podcasts are really interesting themselves. So just if you're interested in the work we do, that's a good easy way to kind of get it. And then we have some social media pages that I think better highlight kind of like culture and just the most important things that we do here, because of course we're kind of advertising and talking about them on our social media pages. So so I think that about does it. I know I went over a little bit, overtime a little bit, but thank you all for listening.
Yeah, thank you so much, Corinne. And if you all still have time, we can certainly do a Q&A at this point if you're open to it. Okay, awesome. So I think everyone should have the ability to unmute yourself. So I'm going to encourage you to do that first to engage with the Mathematica team. But if for some reason you're not able to unmute, you could put your question in the chat and I can read it out.
I think I saw Kanari.
Kanari, yeah.
Yeah, hi, are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Thank you for your presentation. I am a couple years away from graduating, so I was wondering what kind of internships you have available. I'm a PhD student in biostats for reference.
Yeah. So before you mentioned what sort of level or program you're in, I would have said, yes, we do have an internship program. It's wonderful. Actually, Preeti should talk about it because she has been instrumental in running it. But our internship program is like typically like a 40-hour per week opportunity for about 10 weeks or so during the summer. That's best for master's and bachelor's students, I would say. Most of our opportunities are open to either bachelor's or master's students, and they do tend to focus on like research responsibilities. So anyway, that's that's just the internship program. But for you, you're in your PhD program. And so I would actually probably be more likely to recommend our summer fellowship opportunity, which is more focused on providing support and guidance to people who are in their PhD programs who probably are somewhat, they've begun their dissertation work. They are wanting to have, some policy experts sort of review their work, ask critical questions, review their methodologies or whatever. So all of that tends to be really good for PhD students who are in the dissertation process. If that's something you're interested in, we do start reviewing fellowship applications probably around February or March. It does tend to be really competitive. So I would, try to just apply, I guess, early so we don't miss your application. But yeah, does that answer your question? Or?
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Okay, great. Yeah, you're welcome. Any others?
And maybe I'll take this opportunity,
Yeah.
Corinne.
Yeah.
I'm sure that a lot of the students, they would have the internship in their mind for next year. Since we talked about fellowship, we do offer summer internships at Mathematica for undergraduate and graduate students, and we do post all our positions on our careers page. So if that's something that you would be interested in, I would say keep your eyes on our careers page sometime in January. I would say January, February, around that time. And as Corinne said, it is a full-time internship that we offer about 40 hours per week for 12 weeks. And again, a lot of great opportunities to work within any of our research units, but most of our internships, we have limited numbers in international, but we do have, a lot of internship opportunities within our human services and health unit. So yeah, if that is something that you're interested in, just keep your eyes open and, just look for the positions. I see there is a question in chat.
Yeah, I think I saw maybe Ashita.
Hi. So
Sorry
my
if
name
I
is
pronounced that
Ashita.
incorrectly.
Yeah. Hi. So it was pleasure listening to what about yourself and the team that is driving Mathematica. I would like to understand if the opportunity that you mentioned is also available for international students, because I'm an international student pursuing my full-time MPH at Hopkins, and I would be graduating in May next year. I was driven by the equity and healthcare disparity aspect that you spoke about. So I was curious to understand if this opportunity only for domestic students or it's open for international students like me.
Yeah, I can answer that, and then Preeti chime in if there's something I forgot here. But I think there are a few opportunities for international students who might be, eventually seeking a visa or are, on a student visa or OPT status or something. So, so first of all, I think our international research unit is probably across the board kind of the most open to that. So we, it's not uncommon for us to hire international folks in our international research unit and then, sponsor their visas and things like that. I would also say that there are some opportunities in our other units if you are a candidate who kind of fulfills a very niche role that's really that involves some skills or experiences that are really, really difficult to find. I think it's probably worth applying to see, I know it's hard for you as a candidate to know, like, am I that type of person or not? I would just say I would apply. And then if we are open to international people for that for that need, we would be able to contact you and reach out and kind of get the ball rolling. But and then the third situation is for our internship and fellowship programs. Absolutely, anyone can apply, whether you're, regardless of your sort of citizenship status, anyone can apply and be part of our internship and fellowship programs. So those are the three main scenarios I would recommend keeping your eyes open for. But Preeti, anything to add there?
No, you covered everything. And as you rightly said, for the international unit, they could be a little bit more open um, to sponsorship of visas. But as Corinne suggested, if you see any role that you think that you would be really interested in and you have the skills for that role, don't shy away from applying. And if we think that your experiences or the skill sets are really a best fit for what we are looking for, then we do go ahead and get into the recruitment process and interview you. So yeah, internships definitely there. We do consider everyone regardless of their visa status. So that is definitely an opening, and that sometimes it's also, I would say, it's also a way to get your foot into Mathematica. If you do get selected for internship, sometimes you could just continue working for an extended time if there's a need. And then if they get to see what kind of work you bring or what kind of value you're bringing to the work that you're supporting, then that could open up doors to visa as well. So never say no. That's what I would say.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Really
you're
helpful.
welcome. You're welcome. Corinne, I see a question here. Maybe you
Yeah.
can answer that question in the chat here.
Yep.
There's a question that Beatrix is asking. Are there full-time or part-time roles for medical doctors to be involved in health or international projects at Mathematica?
Yeah, I would say actually our health unit, I know that we do have needs sometimes for or I guess we see the benefit of having medical doctors working in our health unit. So it's not super common that would be a requirement that we're looking for, but I would say if you have good public policy or public health training and you are also a medical doctor, that's like a really nice combination for us, because many of our clients do want to be able to see that we sort of truly understand the environments in which we're working and the impact that it has sort of on the ground. And I think there's few people as equipped to really address that as people who have worked in in the medical field as providers. So anyway, it is not something we would see and say, oh gosh, no, this isn't the right fit. I think especially if your experience as a medical doctor is coupled with public policy or public health experience, then yeah, it could be a really compelling candidacy for us. And then I see another question about being employee owned. So yeah, this is a really great question, and I could probably talk for a long time about it, but we are a very open environment in terms of hearing employees' voices and soliciting feedback and responding to that feedback. Preeti has heard me say this before. So I think there are a couple of different ways we do it. So first of all, we really don't, so we have lots of forums for employees to talk amongst themselves, and sometimes even, with executive sponsors or, business leaders listening so they can, understand the feedback and bring it upwards. Some of those examples, so we do have kind of we have a variety of employee platforms where they can, talk to each other, share news, sort of tag our executive team so that they can join in the conversation. And that happens actually kind of regularly. We also have employee resource groups where not only are those places where people can kind of talk about their shared experiences, but they can also make recommendations up to an executive sponsor about hey, I think this really needs to change in order for us to be a more equitable or diverse organization. That person would kind of represent that idea and bring it forth so that the right people can start working on it. So that's very common as well. It's a very structured in the sense that I think it really does make a measurable impact on the internal policies we develop as an organization. I can think of a few examples off the top of my head. We also, we do a fair number of like surveys each year, both on engagement, but also on sort of more substantive action-oriented items around, we took, for example, what's it called? I can't think of the name of the survey, but there was a survey that we took a little while ago, basically to ask all of our staff basically to kind of decide among the benefits that we are able to offer our staff, which would they rather have? Would they rather have an increase, 1 more percentage point added to their profit sharing 401k program sort of contributions, or would they rather have 2 extra days of PTO? And it's called a conjoined survey. So basically all of those responses that we received ended up shaping the decisions that we made around the benefits that we offer. Gosh, there are just so many examples. It's really hard to like list them off the top of my head. But I would say, what I always say about Mathematica is that I will never sit here and say that we do everything right. I mean, that's not true, but I do think that what we do very well is that we try very hard. So, I don't think these days you would hear people saying, at least not maybe a couple of people, but not sort of en masse. People would not say like, well, I've brought this up and no one listens to me. I can't get something forward. Like, it is very much a part of our culture and a part of our world at Mathematica to really listen to our staff. And I think we are doing a very good job of that. Now, again, it's not as if everything that everyone brings up always materializes into the perfect response or update, but people are very much heard. And I think it's a pretty universal feeling that we're all pretty heard. So I don't know, Preeti, that was kind of like a stream of consciousness response, but
Yeah, no, I think you summed it very well. I've been here 2.5, 3 years, and I've seen so many employee engagement surveys and benefit surveys that I've taken personally, and I feel that it's not just with the intent of just doing that survey and not knowing what happened after that. So there is a very open communication, and the survey results are shared with the employees, and what comes out of those meetings and those surveys, it is always shared. So there's a lot of focus on communication. There's a lot of focus on employee well-being. As Corinne said, benefit survey, we've seen so many new benefits that have been added, even during the pandemic, how to best support the employees. So truly, I mean, we can just keep going on and on. It's not just lip service for us. We truly do believe that Mathematica looks after its employees, and employee owned is, I think, a big part of it. How the culture is shaped at Mathematica. Employees understand that we're all in this together, and we got to take care of each other and share our feedback. And employees don't shy away from sharing their feedback or opinions with the leadership, because they know that it is heard and something good comes out of it.
Yeah. Good question. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Yeah, I mean, we're here for a couple more minutes if anyone has questions, but also happy to give people some time back. But oh, Amelia. Hello.
Hello, thank you for being with us. This was very nice to listen to. I'm most involved and have a history in Medicaid redesign and also food as medicine interventions, but I am not a registered dietitian. So for your nutrition programs, are you working more in that area of helping to integrate into healthcare, or do you need that as a credential, or is having worked in that field for the last 6 years enough experience for Mathematica, or what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, Preeti, you might know a little bit more. So in transparency, I tend to work mostly with our health unit, which, Medicaid redesign, obviously, talk about that. But Preeti works a little bit more with our international unit. Human services, which is where our nutrition work mostly resides, is probably not the total expertise of either one of us, but I can tell you, we're not, being a registered dietitian is not part of the qualification process for our nutrition focused analysts. So it's a benefit. It's, sure, any experience that can kind of, again, lend perspective to the work that we're doing is really, really valuable, but you don't need to be like a registered dietitian or anything like that in order to be in those roles.
I agree. I think so. Even I don't have very detailed information about what kind of certifications do we need, but I do believe that the experiences that you've already gained, I think that will definitely be taken into account, but not necessarily you need that certification.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I would suggest, Amelia, again, as I mentioned before, that just feel free, even if you don't know what kind of position you should be looking into, just go onto the careers page and put on those keywords, nutrition, and see what kind of qualifications are listed for other positions, that are nutrition focused. And that way you kind of get a better understanding of what kind of experiences or qualifications, do we typically look at.
Thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Yes, you're welcome.
Yeah.
Cool. It looks like maybe one more question.
Sure.
Alina?
Yeah, thank you. Hi. I was just wondering, I know you mentioned there's definitely a lot of need for people working on Medicaid at the moment. So yeah, there are definitely, several different types of Medicaid positions listed. So I was just wondering if you had any additional insight into, what the team is looking for, maybe distinctions between those. Yeah, that would be really helpful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. So I'm going to try to go based on memory a little bit of the positions that are open. So we have, so obviously Medicaid work can go in a lot of different directions, and there are lots of different types of projects that we do with Medicaid as kind of the core focus. But I would say that, so first of all, couple things. I want to say a few things. So first of all, I wouldn't worry too much necessarily about which position you apply to, because even if you're not sure, it's the same person. Typically it's going to be either Cheyenne or me, or possibly Meredith. We're all in constant communication, and we all sort of understand the different varieties of positions and the different, roles. So we will find the right one for you if you apply to the one that you think is best, and we think it's something else. We will make that happen. However, so there are a couple of different types of positions posted right now. So one has a little bit of an emphasis on analytics. So I think it's called like Medicaid data analyst or something like that. And that's really an analytic position. So it is, you are responsible for more of like, not necessarily yourself cleaning the data maybe, but overseeing that, getting the data, the data sets, like bringing them together, doing the cleaning, doing the interpretation, doing the visualization, like that's kind of going to be a little bit more of the emphasis on the data analyst role in Medicaid that you might see posted. There's another position that I think is like focused on solutions, and at Mathematica, Medicaid solutions would basically be kind of a combination of project management and also client liaising. So managing, the totality of a project in terms of staffing and making sure that the information in a project is correct and accurate and aligned with what the client needs, and, all of that, and written well and presented well. And then also, in addition to that project management component, when we talk about solutions or solutioning here, it also means having that back and forth dialogue with the client and listening to them. And when the client says, well, hey, now that I see this, I wonder if we could do that. And then you bring that back into the project and we kind of expand it. So, that's kind of solutions / project management. There's a general Medicaid role called advisory services analyst in Medicaid, and that is kind of a general position. You can apply if you consider yourself analytic, if you consider yourself more project management oriented, but really what it is it's kind of doing a lot of different things. So you could have some qualitative work, some quantitative work, some technical assistance that you're doing. It's just kind of I don't want to say a catch-all because that dilutes how interesting it is. That it really is just like you could do a lot of different things. It's a little bit more of a general opportunity if you know you're interested in Medicaid but aren't quite sure like which direction to go. So those are a couple of examples.
Yeah, thank you so much. That's super helpful.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, so for the positions listed on the career page right now, do we have an estimate of your timeline for hiring for spring graduates? So for anything that's listed on our career page right now, like today, September 26th, we are either looking for people pretty soon, or in some cases, we know we're just going to be hiring on a rolling basis. So again, I'll give the example of Medicaid. I think if we saw a candidate who applied today but wasn't available to start until the spring, I think we would seriously consider that candidate in general and, interview them and make an offer for somebody to be hired in the spring. If you're looking at some of our more general positions, we are going to start posting them in probably October or November. And our explicit purpose of posting them in October or November will very clearly be, and it will say this in the posting, like we are looking for people to start, between Q1 and Q3 of 2023. We're collecting applications and we will start the hiring process probably in like early 2023. So we want to collect applications, we will kind of review them, but we really won't be able to get started until late 2022 or early 2023 on the hiring timeline. Thank you. Yeah.
And just to add, as Corinne just said, typically I would say the rule of thumb for majority of the times could be if it's a generalized position that you see posted, something like a research analyst or a research associate, mostly we are hiring on a rolling basis, as Corinne said. So there is a lot of flexibility around the start dates, whether it is spring or summer. But when you see some positions that are posted with some specialized skill set, whether it's Medicaid or nutrition or education, whatever that may be, but if you see some specialized words in the title itself, more than likely there's an immediate need that we would want that person to start maybe sooner and not wait until spring or summer. So there is a lot of flexibility, but that's kind of like I would say a rule of thumb to go with. If it's a generalized position, then there's flexibility around the start dates. But if it's a specialized position with some special keywords in the title itself, more than likely we would want them to get started sooner. Is that correct, Corinne?
Yeah, I think that's true. I mean, it's
the most
hard
part.
to say.
I mean, yeah.
I think there's also like an element of, the harder a position is to find candidates for. In some sense, I think the more we would be open to identifying candidates at any point for that role, because we just know that it's a hard skill set to find. What I think you can kind of, I would just say, bottom line, my advice is if you see a position that interests you, I would just apply to it. And I mean, there is a chance that you might not be selected. I think the chance is better though, is if you are a really good fit for the type of work we do here and you appear to be a really strong candidate, we will do our best to either, hold on to your application. We have special folders that we use, or we might say, okay, I know this person isn't quite available yet, but hey team, I really think you should consider them. Like, what can we do? Or we might say, I think that this person might actually be better for this role that I know we're planning to open. And so, we really do try to do a lot of work on the back end to try to figure out where people should go if they look like they're a really solid candidate overall. So I wouldn't hesitate to apply, and don't hesitate to reapply if you don't get selected the first time, but we post it again in spring and that's closer to when you're graduating, apply again. There's no problem with that. So yeah, I guess I just play it on that side of things. Like, instead of trying to interpret like what's a priority for us, what's not, just apply if you're interested.
And you could apply to multiple positions. It doesn't have to be one.
Yeah.
So as many positions as you think you are suitable for, you could apply.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. That's really good advice for our students. I know that's always a topic of conversation of when to apply and, applying for too many positions, but that's very encouraging. So I think we'll go ahead and wrap up since we're just at time here. So I want to thank the Mathematica team, particularly Corinne and Preeti, for taking the time this afternoon to speak with our students. And I know that you have your contact information up here, so thank you for making yourself available for our students as well. And yeah, we just hope everyone has a great rest of your day, good start to the week, and hopefully we'll get some applicants to Mathematica roles soon.
Yeah. Thank you all. Thanks so much for all your questions and for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.